Knock, knock. Hey, good afternoon. It is the 7th of April, and the Rules Embassy is now open, more or less. Yeah, I was gonna do this originally this weekend because the weather was nasty, and all of a sudden, after riding the train home from our language lesson, and the skies turned blue, and the cherry blossoms are looking pretty, and everything else. So I'm kicking myself in the butt, and I'll get this out of the way as quickly as possible. But not that you guys care about much of that anyway, right? Okay. So if you watched or maybe followed the news about the recent NCAA women's basketball tourney regional matchups that occurred in Portland, there was a bit of a story about one of the three-point regions was drawn 9 inches shorter at the apex than on one side of the court than the other, and a number of games were contested on the court before everybody realized what the heck was going on. So, I mean, a bit of a stink on that one, and some people got a bit wound up tightly around the axle. You could argue that each team had the same benefit or suffered from the same encumbrance of that difference discrepancy, but the point at issue there, I think, is kind of one of consistency, and maybe even an attention to detail and stuff like that. So about 2 weeks ago, I worked in the finish area. I was the chief of the finish area of a Triathlon World Cup event in Hong Kong, China. And World Triathlon's Event Organizer's Manual, if any of you have seen it, and I think I've shown it in the past, it's about 200 pages plus in thickness. It's a really, really voluminous manual, and it covers just about everything that you need to know or be mindful of when you're putting together a triathlon event. Some of the things are definitely requirements, and there's others that are closer to strong recommendations. So these standards in the manual are developed so that the athletes and the staff are working under a standard which is consistent at all levels. So if you decide to get involved in triathlon and potentially go to, let's say, the Olympic Games, that you start out with a national cup level event, and the standards are pretty much the same as a continental cup level, like so America's Cup, and then maybe World Cup, so all the standards across the board, the expectations are all there, right? So when I got there to the location, the finish line area looked a little bit on the tight side, and the organizer's manual says that there needs to be a minimum of 15 meters from the finish line to the beginning of the platform where media and cameras sit. That, for those of you in the English system, that is 48 feet 10 inches. All right. So I paced off from the front of the gantry to the back, and it was 15 paces. Might have been that my stride on the day was a touch shorter than 1 meter. Hard to say. After watching a couple events on video over the last few years, and having worked in a couple of other events in the finish area, Yokohama, about 2 years ago, it seemed that this gantry was a little on the smaller side, okay? And they had increased the field because of the Abu Dhabi event being canceled. They went from 55 to up to 70 participants. So when the first 15 or 20 athletes were coming in, things looked very, very congested, and it was very congested in the finish chute there. Space definitely matters there, and that's just saying all that to say that consistency matters, and measuring definitely matters in sport, if not at all in life also. Okay, paying attention to details. So when you go to an event and you go to the athletes meeting or you go to a seminar where the technical official or the event head referee talks about the draft zone distance for age groupers, ask yourself this question. Do they talk in terms of bike lengths or in terms of distance from the lead bike front wheel to the trailing bike front wheel? All right. If the head referee comes out and says, you need to keep 4 bike lengths between yourself and the bicycle ahead, rather than saying you need to stay 10 meters from their leading front wheel to your front wheel, it could be kind of argued, if I took maybe 3 or 4 smaller frame bicycles or kids bikes even, and put that in between and said that the distance is legally closer from that lead bike to that trailing bicycle. Okay, I used to take a chain that was 7 meters in length to seminars for age groupers, and I would give one of the participants one end of the chain and tell them to walk back towards the back of the room, while I held the other end of the chain, and you could see the look and the gasps of horror on the from participants as they realized exactly how far they really had to be between the lead bike and the trail bike. All right. So why are roundabout terms used? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Perhaps it's because the maximum length technically that a bicycle can be based on UCI standards and World Triathlon standards is 2 meters, about 75 inches, give take. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Maybe that's why I'm a big fan, or becoming a big fan, of the race ranger technology that's starting to be used at long distance events. This last year, the PTO began to use it for their long distance events, which has now become T100 events, and the Ironman events, as far as the championship series for their elite athletes, is also going to Race Ranger. That's fantastic, I think. So when the pros first started using this technology, they were amazed to find exactly how far out they needed to be riding in some cases from the bike in front of them. Others loved knowing that they were approaching the draft zone, and when they were finally in the draft zone and had to make the pass. All right. I think it gives a technical official who's watching these athletes one less thing to worry about, and maybe in the near future this will allow more technical officials to be focusing on age group racing and less on the professionals, where because age groups, you have such a humongous field in all these big races, and more age groupers usually means bigger chances of packs forming and accidents happening because of somewhat decreased bike handling skills. All right, because you don't always know how well people in that pack or in that group around you, how well they're riding. Especially if they're an inexperienced bicyclist. Because there's so many age groupers, technical officials were also more likely going to focus more on the more egregious bike infractions. I've told people that I could get rider's cramp from riding and flashing blue cards at folks who sat at just inside that age group draft limitation of 10 meters. They could be 9 meters in for an extended period of time, or maybe they took 30 seconds rather than 20 or 25 seconds to make that pass. Or I could just as easily, kind of wink and, kind of encourage them to back out, as I write the descriptors on the person who's truly wheel sucking, being right up on top of somebody else, okay? That's kind of our dirty little secret as far as technical officials are concerned, all right? So if you're the worst defender in the pack, you are likely going to receive more attention from that technical official. If you're playing close, if you're trying to stay within that limitation, within that distance, that 10 meters of draft distance, and you're staying close to that as much as possible, we're probably going to leave you alone. I think until we get Race Ranger ready for all event participants, I'm probably going to have to go out and get a new chain now that the distance has gone from 7 to 10 meters. And this would just remind me once again also to talk about drafting and the draft zone in terms of distance and not in terms of bike lengths. I hope you got something out of this little story and weren't too terribly confused. If you have any questions about rules enforcement or the USA Triathlon competition rules, or how the changes have come based on the World Triathlon rule set, please feel free to reach out to me at www.facebook.com/USAT Rules Guide or michael.s.bowen@gmail.com. That's it for me, and I'll talk to you hopefully within the next couple of weeks, perhaps right before I go over to Yokohama for the World Triathlon Series race. Have yourself a wonderful day and stay safe. Bye.
I send